Hey Guardians, as you venture back into the deepest corners of the Dreadnought, remember, a lot's changed in the Destiny universe, so here's a little extra lore to take with you while you're down there. Now if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and sharing it. Here we go. The Dreadnought is the final home of Orcs, one he decided to establish soon after the invasion of the Vex into his throne world. The lore doesn't actually make clear how much of a threat the Vex were to Orcs. When he is finally instructed by his worm to return to his throne and set his house in order, he arrives and has little issue dispelling Curia, the Vex mind who had already established a foothold there and had successfully defended it for a century. That being said, the event forced Orcs to move his throne world to the Dreadnought to prevent another invasion, so it may have worried him more than what we're told. Now as you walk back in, have you ever wondered, what is the Dreadnought? The Dreadnought is, quite literally, the hollowed out remains of a segment of the worm god Akka that Orcs killed in order to become the Taken King. The story goes like this. At some point, Orcs realized that the very nature of the worms and their insatiable appetite for destruction could not be satisfied by simply killing, and decided to devise a plan based on what he already knew of the worms as well as his newfound understanding of the gift they were given from him. Given the power that the worms provide from killing, he and his sisters decide to have Orcs kill both Savathûn and Xivu Arath to gain incredible cunning and power, and afterwards, he confronts Akka. He first asks the worm to offer him the way to commune with the deep itself, to which the worm replies that he gives no secrets. Orcs' plan unfolds from there as he tells the worm that he realized the worms don't give anything, and only the light gives. The darkness takes, and although Orcs and his sisters were given worms, these worms are constantly trying to take the lives of the three of them, should they not be satisfied. Using this logic and the power he gained from the murder of his two sisters, he cut Akka into many pieces, and from those pieces gathered the information to speak directly to the darkness, which he refers to as the Tablets of Ruin. This act changed him from being Orash into Oryx, the Taken King. Conveniently enough, he took a souvenir with him and made it his home. So, welcome to the belly of the beast, Guardians. What goes on in here? Have you ever looked around the Dreadnought? The area that intrigues me most is over here. In the fonts area, we can see these structures all over the place. Now, if you hadn't figured it out yet, the Dreadnought is a prison, and every one of these pods are actually cells. Now, from what I can gather, there are 3 different methods the Hive use to imprison their enemies. The first are these basic cells that are fairly small and would house creatures like the Fallen or even Cabal, as we can see in the Dungeon's Crucible map. The second are these large cylindrical cells in the deeper areas of the ship. What's interesting is there are some pretty big cells here, such as the one we actually get to jump into during the Darkblade strike. Now here's what I'm wondering. If the Darkblade is housed in one of these, what's in all the other ones? Now, the third is this odd crystallized encasement. We can see clearly that a wizard seems to be held in some form of stasis here. Some have speculated this is Varrock, the wizard that Darkblade was originally imprisoned for, but there's really no hard evidence, in the Grimoire at least, pointing to anyone in particular. The fact that there is only one of these, though, that we see on the entire Dreadnought, and really in the game itself, and its similarities in appearance to Crota's crystal, makes me believe that this is Iryut, the Death Singer that was defeated in Crota's End, and that yet somehow appears in the Last Rites mission. To our knowledge, she still lives to this day. Could this be her form of Oversoul? What are the Hive? The Hive themselves are actually an interesting race. At one point they had skin and very much resembled humans, save for the third eye, mind you. However, the process of ingesting the worms changed these creatures to be more insect-like, with hardened chitin covering their body. Also, they seem to be decomposing, with hollowed-out stomachs and withered, lifeless faces. Early artwork of the Hive showed them to be the final iteration of the famous moth people that Bungie had originally teased with concept artwork. This image here shows how the Hive were supposed to look, complete with the worm that they ingested. In fact, The worm made up their lower mandible as it burrowed through the back of their head and thus replaced the host's mouth. This would contribute to their ragged appearance, as it seems as though the only nourishment the Hive actually get is based upon what their worm provides. How much power a kill feeds the host is really still unknown, but this information is very telling as to why the Hive appear as they do. Sadly, I think this ruins any chance of getting moth people in the game. Kinda sucks too, because these things are pretty cool. Check it out. Why are we forced to challenge so many bosses before Orcs? A lot of people wonder why it takes so long for Orcs to finally confront us, given that he seems to want nothing more than to avenge the death of Crota. In fact, though, Orcs is very good about making us wait to confront him, both in the campaign mission Regicide, where the Guardian encounters up to 3 bosses depending on the mission difficulty, and the Raid, where he forces us to fight 4 bosses before we are finally able to meet him in combat. Lore-wise, there's a few reasons behind this. First, Orcs is an honorable character, and in this world, if the right method is used, he will not stop you from personal combat. He welcomes it, as it obeys the laws he set forth. The King's Fall Grimoire card tells us, from the perspective of what appears to be Tolan, that in the War Priest battle, we both did our jobs. He in dying, but making sure that the challenge we presented was worthy, and we in killing the War Priest, proving our worth, and tithing to Orcs. That's right, all. We feed him tribute with every kill in this place, because we, like the Vex before us that had infiltrated his throne, have adhered to the sword logic and thus paid both tribute and honor to Orcs. This Grimoire card is really interesting in the fact that Tolan is completely baffled as to how we were able to turn Orcs' own mechanisms against him, such as the Blighted Light during the final encounter. Orcs manifested those as offerings to the Worm God for more power, and instead, we used them to burn him down. You want to know the best part about all this? He loves us for this, because it proves his overarching point. The sword logic is essentially the idea that might makes right, and if you fall to something greater than yourself, it was your fault for not being strong enough, and thus, you should cease to be. In the Grimoire card Strict Proof Eternal, Savathun questions Oryx's final shape, that of the sword logic, and his belief that in this action he is liberating the universe. She tells him that she is not convinced, to which he tells her that the proof is their own existence. If they should live forever, then they were proof that the sword logic was correct, and if something greater should come along and conquer them, it still reinforces the idea of survival and rule going to the fittest. It's a testament that exists within our own world too, don't you think? Convoluted and hidden, yet a simple truth even humanity has adhered to since the dawn of our own existence. Poetic in the end, if you ask me. Where are the other 2 sisters? All speculation aside, there are still 2 Hive gods of considerable power alive and well in the universe. The last we hear from either of them is in the Gift Mask Grimoire card, where Xivu Arath, Hive God of War, tells Oryx that his own power constrains her too much, and that she must leave him, shutting off access to her throne world. Savathun echoes that sentiment, telling them they must grow different in the time they're apart. After they leave, Oryx reflects on that situation, feeling content that his kin now have the revenge that they sought and the life that they deserved. He acknowledges the good in his life, his children, and the time he will now have to learn more of the deep. Before he stops, he questions his sisters and if they potentially have power he's not aware of. Power enough even to challenge the throne. Past this, the story is basically open-ended. Neither of them have been accounted for, and one would assume some sort of retaliation, whether it's to avenge the death of Orcs or to usurp the throne, is on the way. Now, here's where we're going to get into some speculation. What if the Emperor of the Cabal Legions, this ultimate warrior race bred on combat, turns out to be Xivu Arath, the Hive God of War? This is her power, after all. And given how little we know about the Cabal Emperor, it's entirely possible she assumed control of this race and have used them as her militant arm across the galaxy. Now, as far as Savathun's concerned, if you've watched any of my other videos in the past, you know I'm convinced she is Marisov. and I provided all kinds of evidence to support that. However, let me leave you with one new bit of information I uncovered that solidifies this connection in my opinion. The Giftmasked Grimoire card describes Xivu Arath's battle with a race called the Harmony that used Ahamkara wishes. You know, much like the ones we give to Ao before the raids now, to combat and hold her off for 50 years. How were the Hive able to overcome the Harmony in the end? Well, the Grimoire states this. Next arrives Savathun, flanked by her chorus and her celebrants. They trick their way into Anna-Harmony in disguises so they might vivisect these dragons. The Wormar god laughs and laughs. For 100 years, Savathun keeps secret covens among the Harmony. Watch yourselves out there, Guardian. As far as this battle's concerned, we've only just begun.